Alright, what's up guys? It's the Real Estate Professors back with episode 5. I am your host, Sang Kim. Back with my man as always, Ed, Breaking Windows Park, the man, the myth, the legend himself, B-More's finest. And today we're going to be getting into something. I'll let Ed describe what we're getting into today.
Yeah, so Sang, today we're going to get into how to flip a residential property.
Yes, sir.
So how to renovate it, improve it, and to flip it around for a sale. I know Sang's been working very hard for the last couple of months.
Super hard.
Super hard.
Super hard.
On a residential flip in Fort Worth, Texas. So we're going to talk to him about how that went, his process, so help you do your
But before you do that, before we get into that, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and turn on the notification for us. We really hope you like this episode, so let's go.
So the first step about flipping a home, you have to do some research and planning. You have to research the market that you're getting into, what the flip's going to look like, factors such as location, market demand, and potential renovation costs. And so for Sang, your flip that you did, what kind of research and planning did you do for the one in Fort Worth?
So a lot of the research and planning kind of falls heavily on your realtor, believe it or not, because they are the expertise in finding the areas that are selling well, and they are also the expertise in what they sell for. So this is one of those processes where you really have to trust your team and the guidance of the people that you work with. And I know that's kind of hard for people to do because you're investing sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars of your hard-earned money into these projects, and you want to really be hands-on, and I understand that, and I go through that, and I struggle with that on a daily basis, but you really have to trust the professionals that you've helped and hired to be your hired guns in these processes. So it really kind of falls heavily on your realtor in the beginning part of this phase.
Okay. What about financing? That's a big part of it. Can you tell us how you financed this particular deal?
This particular deal, we just did in straight cash. I don't like how the market is as far as the interest rates go, so I didn't really trust the banks to give me a fixed rate on a loan if I were to do it that way. And to be honest with you, I've kind of gotten to the point where I don't do the borrowing aspect of flips anymore because I feel like the interest portion kind of cuts into my profit because these flips aren't always as profitable as they seem, or there's not as much meat on the bone, as we like to say, as we first anticipated, because there's always extra costs, and sometimes these projects have unforeseen things that you just really can't account for. It's not HGTV where they just give you a projected price and then you have a sale price and then you have this bulk net profit thing that they show you. It's really not like that. It's not realistic like that. So it's one of those things that you really, if you can save up, I'd recommend in today's market with the rising interest rates to do them in cash, as I have. But for your typical average investor who's first getting into flips, I'd recommend finding a really good lender in your area. And you can do that a lot of times. Once again, I'm going to kind of fall back on your team, is that if you have real estate professionals that you work with, either lawyers or realtors, they know good lenders that do construction loans. And so I would, if you're first starting out, I would go construction loan and not the hard money route, because the hard money route is very much more higher percentage than the regular lenders that do construction loans for you.
Okay. For this property, what was the condition of it? Was it a distressed one? Was it a foreclosure, short sale, just a market property?
We actually got very lucky on this property. We bought it at roughly $100 a square foot, and that's kind of like what you're looking for. You're looking for $100 a square foot or below on distressed properties. So to your question, it was a distressed property. It wasn't necessarily a completely distressed property, but it's one of those homes where the family had lived in it for such a long period of time. They'd been there for 20 or 30 years that the property was once done nicely by them because those were primary residents and they lived in there and they'd taken care of it. But over the course of time, as these couples get older, these homes have become more and more outdated. There were columns with like these overhang things, and these days you want modern, open, big spaces, really kind of undefined spaces, if you will. And so because of that, their tile was so old, and but there were some good pros to this project where we were able to use the original hardwood floors from like 1951. We just resanded and just kind of put a primer down on them, put a little varnish and stuff. So we actually turned what was red oak looking wood and sanded it down and made it white oak. So it actually turned out really well. We're happy with how it turned out. But yes, initially pretty distressed. Roof was caving in and all kinds of issues. So we had to pour in quite a bit of money into just minor structural stuff and things like that. So yeah, but we got a good deal on it. And it being a little bit distressed is kind of what we look for, to be honest with you. If I have a pro tip advice, I would say that you're looking for distress primarily, not squatted on type of home where like they just abandoned it. You want everything working, plumbing, electricity, and all that other stuff, the majors, but you want it a little bit to where you have room to negotiate with the family. So this family, the father was the breadwinner of the home, and he was the only primary winner of the home, and he passed away, and he was an older gentleman, so unfortunately they had to evacuate the home, and they got into a little bit of financial trouble. So we're able to kind of scoop a good deal from them. It wasn't bank owned or anything like that. So just a multiple offer situation. So we were ended up winning because we were all cash.
Okay. What about the property inspection? Obviously, you did one on this. What did you find, and how much did you anticipate paying?
So when we buy distressed properties as flippers, we don't actually, we waive the option period. So one of the enticing things about our offer versus a standard offer where somebody's going to come in and make this their actual residential primary home is that we come in as investors and we give them 0 days. We don't have any option. We're cash. We can close within a week or 2 weeks, however fast that title allows us to. So we actually waive the option period because we do all the inspecting ourselves. We're going to have to come in and fix A to Z anyways. So what's the point of knowing what's wrong with it anyway? So if it doesn't pass your eye test, then you're not buying the home anyways.
Can you talk us a little bit about the renovation plan, like the timeline, the budget, scope of work, to bring the property value up?
So scope of work is always a little bit different house to house, right? Timeline, we're typically always trying to stay within a 2-month max construction timeline. And so that's for a variety of reasons. As your contractors tend to skip jobs on you. They will if they stay with you for a longer period than that, they're going to start booking up other jobs as your job starts to end. So you start to lose that back end productivity. And then there's also the cost, right? That you don't want to be holding for too long. There's property taxes, there's insurance, there's utilities that start to add up. So you want to budget in a timely manner, and that time for me is typically 6 to 8 weeks within a project that's a home that ranges between 1,500 square feet to about 2,200 square feet.
Okay. And when you talk about contractors, did you have a crew ready for you guys? Did you have to go get more subcontractors and permitting? Did you have to get special permits?
We were fortunate that we didn't run into a lot of issues where we needed a lot of permitting on this project. You will need to start to get some permits towards the end of the project, like when you redo a fence. Like the city always seems to say something about that. But if you work quietly within the means of your home, and this is just a pro tip advice, everyone that starts out in this business, in this game that we play, they typically get scared of the process. And so my advice to you is this: don't get scared of this process, because really, if you find yourself good contractors, they're going to do a lot of the work for you where you're not having to go pull permits for this, that, and the other. They're going to know what they're doing, and you don't really need to go work around and stall your project by permits. And if you can avoid getting permits, I would definitely recommend that. Some cities, very tight, some smaller cities, they're going to be on you. City workers are just bored driving around. They're going to find a dumpster in front of your house, and they're going to know that you're working on the house. And so they're going to come be nosy a little bit, and then you're going to be forced to get these permits. But if you can work around it, it'll save you a lot of time, a lot of money, if you don't have to go pull these permits.
Okay. Let's talk about the renovation and repairs for this.
All right.
Did you complete on time? Was it within budget? How did the numbers work on this one?
So we budgeted $70,000 on this house.
Okay.
So typically, what I do as far as budgeting goes is I do it construction cost wise. I do it $30 a square foot. So whatever the home square footage is, I do that and multiply that by $30 a square foot is my construction cost. That's not the extras for, say, if you have foundation or roofing and all that other stuff. I don't build that into construction costs because that's not the interior of the home, the materials and the labor. So what I budget for is $30 a square foot. And I've gotten that down pretty much to a science. When you're starting out, you may be closer to $40 a square foot. And that's just me being completely honest with you because you're going to have to sub out different contractors for different jobs, plumbers, electricians, floor guys, or whatever. So you're going to have a multitude of different crews coming in. And when you do that, and when you have specialty guys come into your project, your cost is a little bit higher because these guys specialize in each trade that they do, cabinets, what have you. So what I actually end up doing is I actually have several crews bid on my jobs. So every house that I pick up, I have 3 different crews bid on the job. So I have them bid on just the labor cost, labor plus material cost, and so I'll run with it from there, and then I'll pick based on their past work. You can get references from their past jobs. You can ask them for their previous boss's numbers. You can reference their jobs that way. And then there's also other sites out there that if you Google search them, it's kind of like the BBB of contractors. Sure. So it's not called BBB. What the websites are, it slips my mind, but there are several sites out there that they have reviews too. So my, I guess, pro advice here in this scenario would be find yourself a good group of guys that can knock out the majority of the work. Now, some specialty things, like I had to order cabinets from my cabinet guy. They don't build cabinets, but my guys can set them, so it offsets a certain cost of my cabinet guys only need to build them. They don't need to paint them. They don't need to set them. They just need to come bring them to me whenever they're ready. So get 3 bids on every one of your jobs, guys. Make sure you do not shortcut this process. That would be my advice there.
What about staging and curb appeal? Like, did you do anything special to enhance the landscaping, the exterior, try to bring that welcome factor in?
Yes, I am a big believer in curb appeal. I believe that a lot of times people don't paint the exterior of their home when they're flipping for some reason. And some people don't even change out the roof. I know a guy who has 50,000 followers on Facebook that I also follow. He's an ex-plumber here in Dallas, and he's got this big Facebook group, and he believes in never changing windows and never changing the roof. And he's done hundreds of flips, supposedly, and he never does those 2 big ticket items for some reason. I don't change windows either. If they want windows, I'll come have Ed break a window and they can change it themselves or whatever, because
I'm an expert at that.
Yes, he is an expert at that. That's why he is the handyman of this show. But no, but outside of that, I don't change windows, but I do always change roof to the color that I want. So that's big for me. It's because it's not just fixing something for them, but it also enhances the curb appeal of the home. So I typically go with a black roof, white exterior if I can right now. So this home, it was odd because it's a little bit older. Typically in Dallas, as you know, most homes are brick here, right? But this one is an older home and had a lot of siding. So we had to change a ton of siding. We were hoping to reuse some, re-sand it down and, putty it up and then just recaulk, repaint. But we actually ended up having to buy a ton of siding, re-side the whole house pretty much, and repaint. So I did a white paint with a black roof and white windows, just painted out the exterior of the windows. So it really pops nicely. We did cedar posts that just chipped out their whole patio and masoned it up with like nice bricks. We'll post some pictures of the finished product before and after as we're talking through this segment. And we'll show you what we did there. But yeah, nice cedar stained posts. Had to change out their front door. And that was I did that at the 11th hour, to be honest with you. I was going to use their original front door because it had some character. There's so many dents in the door, and we just had to putty so much that I didn't want that to be the first impression of the home. And I really feel like curb appeal and first impression of the home goes a long way, guys. And that goes all the way from pictures. I would hire a very good photographer who can do twilight pictures, 3D walkthrough, and even sometimes the the drone pictures and things like that to give you the full scope of the overhead of the home and the neighborhood if you have good elevations that way. And so I'm big on that. Big on landscaping. I actually do myself. That's one of the few things that I actually get in there and go do myself. I start pulling out some weeds, go buy a couple dozen bags of mulch it out, buy some stone, put it around the trees, and rake up the old stuff, and then kill all the weeds and do all that. I don't plant flowers and do all that, but I do mulch out, I do stone out. I'll show you guys what I did with our landscaping. We actually put a couple $1,000s right at the end of the budget, even though we're over budget because we felt like we just really needed that cherry on top. And so I'll post a picture of the front elevation of what we did as far as the stoning of the landscaping. I'll let you guys decide how it turned out, but I think it turned out. We've gotten some good feedback on it. We've been live for about a week. No offers yet, but we've had some positive feedback as far as the elevation, some of the renovations that we've done.
Yeah, that brings us to the last portion is marketing and selling the home, and also negotiating.
Yeah.
How are you doing that? I know you mentioned you put it on MLS, I believe.
Yeah.
Are you using an agent? How are you going through the steps of getting it to the finish line?
Getting it to the finish line. Gosh, I feel like we're kind of speeding through the process of this. There's so much that I can go into as far as small details, but I will go back to your team. I always use the same realtor that I use to purchase the home as I do to sell the home, because that is who got me into the area. That is who is familiar with that surrounding area, what it should go for. And they also typically know other realtors in that area that have buyers. So my advice would be to always list with the person who you brought you to the property to begin with. As far as some of the pricing, how we market, we're marketing obviously all the regular channels, social media, my own, the realtors who has a decent following on her end, and just doing it pretty much guerrilla. We're not advertising or doing anything like that. We're trying to let the product speak for itself. I think we've put in the work. This is something that you guys should never base what the price of the home that you purchase or sell is, but the Zestimates, I know people love these things, the Zestimates of your home. People are addicted to looking at the Zestimate of your home or whatever, but it's just a very broad estimate based on your whole zip code. This is why I don't like using it that way, because they do it per zip code and not per subdivision. And every subdivision typically has a different school district. They have different demographics of their own little quarter-mile radius or even smaller than that. So don't get too hung up on Zestimate, Redfin estimate. I know Ed loves Redfin. I love Redfin too. I like them as a company. They're pretty solid as far as the ones that are majors between Realtor and Trulia and Zillow. I actually like Redfin a lot too. So our list price on this home is $499,900. Some of our comps actually were almost $300 a square foot. It's a 2,000 square foot home. Some of our comps actually ranged all the way up to like $300 a square foot in the same zip code, same school district, which would have put us at $600,000 list price. And I didn't think that our neighborhood was developed enough yet for me to reach that way, because I'm already reaching a little bit. So we're at 499.9. My Zestimate is 499.901.
Oh, very nice.
I left $0 on the table, guys. I'm going for the whole shebang, the whole salami on this deal. Redfin, your favorite site, actually has it estimated at 501,798 or something like that. So I'm
Okay.
pretty close, and I know the realtor will help you in these scenarios, but once you do this enough, guys, you'll start to get a feel for what your house can or can't sell for. Don't be unreasonable. Don't be biased. Don't have these emotional things tied to your own projects because they are your babies, and I get that. But you also have to be realistic, and you also have to try to move on to the next project. Not one project is bigger than the next because the market shifts a lot, and you never want to get stuck in these projects, right? So I have roughly $315,000 invested into this project. I would love to move on. I have it listed at 499. If somebody brings me an offer at 475, you don't think I'm going to strongly consider that and take my $130,000 in profit and move on to the next project? Most definitely I will, right? Because all profit is good profit. And this game is not guaranteed to return you a profit because I actually went $20,000 over budget on this project because I needed to finish out the way that I felt like I was going to sell this home. And that's another thing that if I have a piece of advice to anybody listening out there is that don't just restrict yourself to saying, oh, I'm not going to spend any more than my $45,000 budget. Because if you shortchange your project, the buyers will notice it on the finished product. So if you didn't finish it out the way that you envisioned it finishing out, they're not just going to come in and buy your house just because you think it looks nice. You know what I mean? Like the market will dictate what your house will sell for. Always. This is real estate 101. Ed knows this. You can think whatever. I can say that my house is worth $1 million, but the market's going to tell me that it's worth $490,000, right? So, but to get it, in order to get it to the finish line, you have to put out the product that will sell. Because no matter what your price range is, whether it's 300,000, 500,000, 700 million, 1.5 million, buyers have options, especially in today's day and age, right? The rising interest rates was kind of causing an uncertainty within the market. So my advice is, even if you have to spend a couple more $1,000s, make sure you give the buyer your best and put your best foot forward. And I've never had to hold on to any one of my projects, whether it's new construction or flips, because I always do more than what is even asked of that price range and that target zone. So my wife actually gets on me all the time, like, hey, we could have made $25,000 more on this house, but you decided to put in quartz level 3 instead of granite level 4 on these countertops and doing some of these over the top things. But because of that, my track record is pretty pristine. As Ed likes to say, he's never lost in real estate. My real estate track record is pretty flawless because I really do more for the buyer. And even on some of the repairs guys, if they come in and they're trying to haggle you on the inspection side of things, I don't know if we're going to get to this part or not, but on the inspection side of things, after you put your home under contract, make sure that you're thorough in this list because they know that you do this for a living. So they're going to expect a little bit more, and some people are going to try to take advantage of that, and I understand that nobody wants to feel like they're taken advantage of, but at the end of the day, you're trying to build a reputation within your communities. So in order to do that, in order to be able to sustain longevity in this game, is you really have to show that you're appreciative of them. And that's within any format of business, right? Like really truly say that you're appreciative. If they bring you an offer, be appreciative, be grateful that your home is selling so that you get to move on to another beautiful project and get to learn more and do more exciting things within the world of real estate.
No, that's a good point, Sang. But that's pretty much sums it up for the residential flip. Of course, we're going to put some pictures
Yeah.
and sort of itemize the stuff for you so you can visualize what Sang has worked for.
And make sure to leave some comments. I'd love some feedback on the house. I mean,
you know how much he's going to sell it for, right?
Yeah. So you know the price, and so I would definitely like feedback. I'm always trying to improve. And my last piece of advice before we kind of send this off is that there are a lot of influencers out there that tell you that you need to kind of follow the same regimen on flips, like use the same contractors, use the same materials, this is my PDF and all this stuff. I've been seeing that a lot lately, and it kind of irks me a little bit, because my one advice would be is this: the one area that I've had success in is that do your homework. And when they tell you to just keep doing the same format over and over and over again, people will start to know that you're just kind of being lazy about your project. And that really kind of irks me in the sense that you didn't do your homework, you didn't do your research. And I think at the end of the day, the end buyer will kind of feel that when they walk through the home, because they want to love this home. They want to make this their home for the next 20 years or whatever. They want to see themselves in this home. And if you're putting out the same cookie cutter product, they're not going to feel that from them. They're not going to feel that warm home type of feeling the second they walk through that door. So my advice is this: whenever you're locating or you're researching what home to buy and how to get into these houses, make sure that on the back end, you know what these houses sell for, and go find the highest comp in this area. Find the highest that area has ever sold for. Find that house and mimic and mirror that house. That would be my one biggest piece of advice, is that don't go put out a cookie cutter project and make just save your tile for the next project, or save this paint color for the next project. That's not how we do things, and that's not how you should do things if you're trying to be successful, because every neighborhood has its separate dynamics and its own separate type of buyers. So this area has this type of buyer, and they like siding versus they like bricked homes, or they like white paint versus they like gray interior walls. So every neighborhood has its own separate dynamic. So find the house that sold for the most in your area within the last 6 months to a year and copy that project. That would be my number one piece of advice that I've learned over the years of doing this. It leads to very successful projects by doing it that way.
Thank you, Sang. You want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, we hope that you've liked this piece of information. If there's anything else that you guys feel like we didn't cover in this video, make sure to drop those in the comments below for us, because we would love to connect with you guys. That's what we're here for, obviously. Ed's been a little bit quiet because Ed's a little bit of a buy and hold kind of guy, and that's good too. We're going to be covering way more of that on how to get into more properties and hold them and have them appreciate. But we hope that you've liked this episode. We hope that you've enjoyed it.
So Sang, that was great information.
Yep.
We really appreciate it. Do you want to sign us off?
Yeah, we hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. It's something that I do on a daily. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, I know that sounds cliche, but please drop us a comment. I'd love to connect with you. Ed would love to connect with you. This is what we do. This is what we're passionate about. So if there's anything that you see within my project that you think that I could have done better, please leave me a comment. Drop that comment. Hit like and subscribe. I'm your host, Sang Kim.
I'm Edward, Breaking Windows.
That is right, folks. We'll see you next time. Later, guys.
All right.